But even if they do it.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good afternoon, Donna.
Hello, David.
How have you been?
You know, I just have been running on my little hamster wheel like I'm supposed to, keeping everything moving along.
Yep. Well, today we are going to be talking about something that's near and dear to your heart. We're talking about vendors with big breaches.
Stay out of my breeches.
Yeah. So more problems. It was interesting that this morning I had a conversation with a client last week, and she said, I'm going to tell one of my employees to start doing the identity theft monitoring from LifeLock because something had happened in the employee's life that needed to be locked. And so I responded to her this morning. And I said, oh yeah, by the way, over the weekend, this came out. And I send her a link to the LifeLock breach, and she's like, my gosh, like the reason I told her to use this was because of a breach. And now that's been breached. And I'm like, welcome to my world.
Yep.
Always in somebody's breeches.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what, maybe I should change the name of this to Vendors Breaches in Your Breeches. Vendors in Your Breeches. That's what we're going to call this. Vendors in Your Breeches.
Okay. Yeah. Or I'm in the vendor's breeches. You know?
Yeah.
Either way, I don't want to be there, and I keep finding myself there.
Yeah. Well, you know, we just did talk about LastPass for LastPass, and then, you know, and everybody's worried about switching and all this other stuff. It's like, when we say it's not if it will happen, it's when it will happen, we're not kidding.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny, when we talk to smaller clients, it's more like, you won't even know when it happens. you have no ability to know when it happens. So that's the more scary part, is that, you know, you don't even know when it happened or how long it happened. Some people are like, wow, I've never had a breach. And then you get in there and you find out that you, not only did they have a breach, but the person had been in there so long that they just left. Like they didn't even care to be there anymore. They weren't like, you had a breach like a year ago, and it's not even been signed in the past 3 months.
I got everything I wanted, but it's like they'll periodically come back like every 6 months and test just in case. That's when they start selling access to your site because they got everything they wanted.
Yeah, and that's one that's really just head shaking.
Mm-hmm. It is so. Well, and we're going to talk about how complicated all of this is. It's very complex, David. It's very complex.
Yeah, that it is. But we will be breaking a lot of this down at the PriSec Bootcamp. The Privacy and Security Bootcamp coming up March 12 through 15, and the time is drawing nigh. So if you want to get in on that, you need to go to prisecbootcamp.com, find out more, get your tickets, tons and tons of CEUs being handed out, just like Oprah handing out cars.
We have been pre-approved for 27.6 live CEUs by the Compliance Certification Board. And usually if you can get, past one of those, the others, if they will take third-party CEUs, they will be perfectly content taking ours. So definitely be able to knock out a ton of CEUs all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, we're there for you in so many ways that we don't even know.
Yeah.
All right, so go check it out. Oh, we now have videos from the speakers. We're adding videos from the speakers. You can go listen to what we say about what we're doing and why you should come. It's fun. That's really the reason. Bourbon and Breeches happy hour. That'd be the reason to come.
Yeah. What about the webinar? Does this come out before the webinar?
I don't. Will you be shocked to know I don't know when I'm doing a webinar? So that I can be sure that I know when this one comes out. But we are doing a webinar. Go to our social media. Check that out. I believe that this comes out just before the webinar. But that information is indeed on all of our social media. And you can learn more about that. I think we'll even have it on the priceactbootcamp.com website, as well as all the cardinhq.com websites. Or you could just send an email to elizabeth@cardinhq.com and say, Donna said you get me in, which is really fun for me. Okay. That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. Welcome to the spam list, Elizabeth.
That gives me joy to mess with my team. I love them, though. I do. All right. Let's tell everybody where they can go, David, to learn more, sign up, and get your room.
Yeah. Go to priceactbootcamp.com. Spell PRISEC bootcamp.com.
Yes. Because Privacy and Security Bootcamp, or HIPAA Privacy and Security, that became way long.
Yeah.
I struggle to say privacy and security all day. I get tongue tied, and we all know this if you've been a listener here.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't been a listener for a long time, you're going to learn it.
Yeah. We couldn't use like psbc.com because I think it's some kind of Baptist church somewhere. But
yeah, let's not do it. That would, we're not going to be, we'll be preaching, but not that gospel. All right.
Yep. If you want to know more about what Donna does when she's not doing, go to cardinhq.com. That's her thing. And if you want to find me, I'm at HIPAA4MSPs.com. Spell it or misspell it. Doesn't matter. You get there.
Yes, indeed. Go check us out. You can share us, talk about us on social media, rate us, all those things. We're starting to drop in if somebody searches for a HIPAA podcast because we haven't had enough recent reviews. So you need to jack us back up in that list by helping us out.
Yep. Leave us a review. And thanks to our donors. And also, I think you want to give an overdue shout out.
Yeah. Well, remember, I told you I was going back and searching emails for ones I had missed. Thought I'd found them all. It seems like every week I discover something I missed in my side projects. Hopefully not in my day-to-day. But it was from Wendy, who sent us an email with a link to one of the 2021 website tracking settlements. It's like 18.5 million. I included the link. But we appreciate Wendy for reaching out, for being a listener. And just so everybody knows, I just wanted to share that Wendy said, love your podcast, and I don't even work in healthcare. So, boom.
Yeah,
you don't need to. Thanks, Wendy.
We have several times been rated one of the better privacy and security podcasts to follow. Not even HIPAA related. As a matter of fact, that's how a lot of them introduce us. Like, kind of like, just ignore the name. It's a good privacy and security podcast.
InfoSec, we're one of the top InfoSec ones. We get, we're up there for our little bitty podcast. And many people say, if you two would invest in some marketing, you would do. And we're like, we ain't got time for that. So if you want to do some marketing for us, appreciate it. We ain't got time.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do the Patreon so that you pay for it because, well, the whole point is education for what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And Donna don't want to be internet famous anyway.
We got enough problems without somebody deciding they're going to come after us just because. I mean, I have to deal with David anyway, trying to figure out how to break things.
Yeah, no, you're pretty good at that. Pretty good at that.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's jump into the HIPAA Say What?
Very good, David. Very good.
I know. That was hard.
But until you get that to work in your other office, I'm not going to.
I know. I'll work on it. It's at the top of my list, number 10.
So I have two Say What topics for today. One is BAAs. You know, sometimes you'll go and you'll get something weird and then you won't see it again for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see something that we don't normally see pop up twice, two different clients, two different situations in 2 weeks, then I'm like, okay, well, I might as well mention it because it seems to be in the water somewhere. I mean, we're talking 2 different states, 2 different types of it, everything, but exact same question, which gets down to, do you have a sign to be AA? The answer should be yes. As we all very well know, you should be saying, yes, we do. Because what has happened is, well, here's your copy of your BAA, but it's not signed or it's not countersigned, meaning signed by both entities. And that has been an issue twice recently. And we even went so far as to contact our OCR investigator friend, who, by the way, does come to the podcast. Or podcast. Really? See? There we go. Does come to the Prospect Boot Camp and help answer questions about how OCR investigations work, and tries to thread the needle of what she can and cannot say because of legal stuff. And the point that OCR will make is that it's the covered entity or upstream responsibility to make sure that you have a BAA that is legally executed before you give anybody access to PHI. So that usually means that both parties have to sign it.
Yeah.
And by the way, you need to have a copy of it.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I run into clients, well, probably more prospects really going through the prospecting process where I ask those types of questions about the BAAs, and and it just shocks me how many times they're like, no, we don't have a BAA for that vendor.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. And then you're like, wait, what? Well, we'll call them, and literally one of the situations was everybody said everybody else had it because, reorganization, new jobs. So they give up because no one can find it, and they call the vendor, and the vendor's like, we don't have one. Wait, what? So, and then it's like, oh, we did find one that has your signature on it, but not ours. And we can't sign it now because the person that would have signed it then doesn't work here anymore. Okay, but you were supposed to sign it and send it back to us. Is that where the problem is? There's a disconnect at all times, apparently.
Yeah.
So it is the covered entity's responsibility with their immediate downstream BAs, but then it becomes the BA's responsibility when it goes further down, and we're going to get to the importance of that shortly. But do audit your contracts and resolve these kinds of issues because, well, we'll get to that in just a minute.
Yeah.
The importance of making sure that you have all your vendor documentation in place.
Yeah. And we've talked about this a lot of times too, but if you are a business associate, then these are things that should be part of your sales process. You don't sell a client, get them to sign and all that stuff, and they go, okay, now let's negotiate the BAA. Because you might find out that you guys aren't going to be a good fit for each other, and they want you to sign something you don't want to sign, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. So that should be something that's part of your sales process.
And I have had people who ask me, there are BAs that ask me about, well, I can't get the covered entity to sign to sign a BAA. And so to them, I say, well, ultimately, document that you've tried to make it happen, but it'll be the covered entity's responsibility. You just need to watch yourself on your downstream.
Yep, that is true. I love those people, though. They're like, just run away.
If I don't
I'm like-
sign it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I prescribe more to it kind of depends. I mean, depending on how much they're paying me, I'm not running anywhere. Just going to document it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to change their attitude later, but for right now, let's get some money.
Yeah. Document it like crazy. That's all you can do. And I mean, we run into that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, leadership changes. We've had large groups. I mean, with like 10 locations and tons of providers say, we don't need to take it this seriously. And I'm like, and they literally say, we too small. Wait, what? Okay. Well, we'll move on from that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the other HIPAA Say What thing is questions about the privacy rule. And so somebody is telling people that the privacy changes have to be implemented in March. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. So here's what they're talking about. The privacy rule changes in the NPRM, knows proposed rulemaking that goes way back to 2019, 2020 timeframe. In fact, our original discussion where we went through these proposed changes to the privacy rule is episode 291.
Wow.
We are now recording episode 391.
I can do the math on that one.
Yeah, even I can. So these things have been bobbing around for a while, every stage of the way due to obvious things. You know, coming into 2020, everybody's like, getting it done this year. And just like every other plan for 2020, that went in the shredder. So all of the different elements that you have to go through for these things have occurred from the standpoint of the legal requirements. Yes, I know. David just highlighted in the final action, and I give you a link to the rule change status under the where the legal stuff is. And it logs, you know, everything that's happened with it and when it all came out, and you can see that history. But it currently says the final action date is 03/00/2023. Copied that right out of the page. So you can go link yourself. So what are they doing in March? And that's where this whole March thing came from. So first of all, my point is everything about this has been delayed, and there are some complex parts in there. And they just extended for another 30 days the public health emergency, which impacts HHS and how it can do all of its legal stuff. So all that being said, I'm not super concerned that it will absolutely happen. That the final rule date in March will actually occur. Now, it could. I'm not saying it definitely won't. I'm simply saying keep in mind that everything else about this rule has, let's just say, gone away. Move to another day. So with that in mind, it could very well happen with this as well. And the fact that it doesn't even have a date in there, a day, 00. That's the day, 00. I'm not super worried about it. Now, I do know that it will likely be done. And the thing that we're waiting on is their responses to all of the comments during the proposed rulemaking, which the comment period got extended at least once, if not multiple times. So yes, there are things in there. Yes, some of them won't be horrible to implement, like, okay, we're going to update the NPP, but we don't have to get the keep up with the signatures anymore. What? That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So there's some things like that, but there are other complex things. So my recommendation is stay aware that these things exist, pull out the NPRM, review it, or go back to episode 291 and learn more about it. Then the second thing is there is another privacy rule thing that's been proposed for the 42 CFR Part 2 Common Rule, blah, 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 aligning those to the privacy rule and the privacy requirements under that. We did discuss that in the HIPAA Say What section on episode 362 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. But that is specifically for those who deal with the Part 2 requirements, privacy requirements, which are separate for substance abuse and some other scenarios. Those are in proposed rulemaking and a completely separate change. But even if they do it, if they do it in March, you still have like 200 and something days under, legally to actually implement it. So don't think, oh, I've got to have that operational in March.
No,
So,
but we know you'll wait till day 199 anyway.
I know, right? That's what everybody does.
It's no fun unless we're doing it while we're panicking.
Yeah, I know. Well, a lot of the times we find people that don't even know it existed prior to it being required.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with those? Well, So those are the HIPAA Say What things, to pay attention to. So now let's get to vendors in your breaches.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. The stats that you can download from the OCR breach portal,
Mm-hmm.
where all the 500 and higher number of patients involved breaches go.
Yep.
You can download that stuff and crunch your own numbers. So your data nerd friend is going to do that.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning, as we have before, that just because you don't see the person there or the company there does not mean they did not have a breach.
No, not at all. Because if you've less than 500, they're not on there at all. So if you have 499 patients involved 10 times, none of them will be on this portal and in these numbers.
But Donna, let me ask you, does that mean that they don't have to report it at all?
No. No, it does not.
So even if it's just one patient, Donna, do I have to report it?
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. Yes, you do, David. And ironically, it needs to happen to the patient within 60 days. You need to notify them. But HHS, you don't have to notify until 60 days after the end of the year. And then everybody tries to figure out what day in March that is based on leap year. So I just say, why not just say the end of February and be done with it?
Yes. Or March 00.
That's good stuff right there. Good stuff. March 00. Okay, so there is a lot of data that you can pull out of numbers and spreadsheets. That's right. I am one of those. Oh, a spreadsheet. Yay.
Look at the colors.
There's more pretty colors. How do you do it? So here's some things that I wanted to note, and then there's an article we're going to end on to kind of bring to, tie it all together, the importance of everything we talked about. So one important thing, well, there's two things you notice right away when you start doing numbers, and that is hacking IT incidents have gone through the roof and continued to just explode. Now, could be that they've always haven't been reported. Not saying that doesn't every now and then occur to us. But more importantly, it could be that they are getting worse and they are being reported. Because I remember when I think it was going into 2020, maybe 2019, they were expecting 350. I think it was going into 2020, and they said they thought they would get 350 because they had got like almost 300 in 2019 of over 500 breaches. You know, it was like 250 something. So they said we're going to get 350. Yeah, they blew through that in 2020. It was like 370, 369. And then in 2021 it hit 446. And now it's 482.
Well, at least it, slowed down a little bit, but but it's not going down.
It's not going in the right direction. Now, all the other types seem to be doing, I think two things are happening with the unauthorized access and disclosure. They're getting better at catching them before a lot of people do the unauthorized access. Plus, the people that would select unauthorized access in a hacking incident now have kind of figured out to do the hacking thing. So,
yeah. Yeah, for me, all these numbers across the whole spectrum are always minimum numbers in my head because I know by experience there are a lot of people who never report.
Yeah. And they always say to us, you can't do that. No. I can't drive 55 either. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when I look at the stats 2017 to 2022, first of all, the total number reported has exploded. 2018, we didn't even have 300, and the total number over 500 is 603 4 years later in 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. So more than doubled since 2018. And the change, though, is a 36% increase in hacking and IT incidents, while all the others decreased over the time.
How about that?
Yeah. So we know where the problem is.
Yeah.
And then we're just looking at the types of incidents. Hacking and IT, nobody's surprised. It's like 80% of the breaches of those 600, all due to hacking IT issues. But then when we start to say, okay, is it a business associate or a covered entity? So we first say, well, who reported it? And interestingly enough, health plans, very small percentage. These big health plans have pretty good security, and they're not as well known as they don't have the urgency as a healthcare provider would to pay a ransom or pay for their data back, any of those things. So 70% healthcare providers reported. That leaves 18% for business associates, and then there's like 14. So, rounding and all of that. Feels that way. But here's the thing. When a healthcare provider reports, they can say, was a BA involved? Yes. Now, if the BA is reporting, clearly the BA is involved.
Yeah.
Every time. So when we look at who's reporting and we take into account the healthcare providers that said a BA had reported, it dramatically changes the statistics that we look at. Because we go, and just to say, over 49 million patients. Now, many of those already been through breaches. You're getting used to it. But 49 million patients were in those 603 million. Of that, when we look at the number of patients involved, it dramatically shifts right away from that 18% being business associates reporting and 70% healthcare. Suddenly, when we look at the patients, 57% of the patients come from healthcare and 38 from business associates.
So about double.
Yeah. So right away, it starts to shift. So then when I said, I can do more math. Let me add together the ones reported by the business associate as well as the ones that covered entities reported but said business associates were involved. We go from big numbers to now the healthcare provider drops to like 59% and the business associates shoot up to 33.5%. Yeah. So you go from we're not of the total number of 603, we're less than 20% to, whoa, Bessie, we're almost doubled.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there is more. So from 111 to 202 business associates were involved, either reporting or were involved. Then we get to the patients. And now you see the big problem. Because when we look at the number of patients involved when business associates are involved, almost 50%.
Oh, wow.
It's 46.5, 50.4, and health plans 3%. So if you're looking at it as a vendor, you should be paying attention. And if you're looking at it as somebody who has business associates downstream, you should be paying attention. And this is the whole reason we spend, a whole afternoon talking about vetting vendors and how dangerous you don't just outsource the responsibility. Just like we just talked about, it's the upstream's responsibility to make sure the BA is in place, the BAA is in place. It's also your responsibility to ultimately make sure that patients are notified in a data breach. It's your responsibility to answer the questions a lot of times. And it doesn't tell us, just because you have a data breach doesn't mean you're not secure. And just because you don't have one doesn't mean that you are.
Preach it.
So, it just tells us how many are reported and by whom and how many patients are involved. But still, if you're not paying attention to your vendors, what do these numbers tell you?
I should be worried.
Red alert, everything's flashing. You're not paying attention. But being a BA, as we both are, we understand that, particularly MSPs like you have the keys to the kingdom, brother. If I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom, I ought to make sure you know what to do with them.
Yep.
So those numbers, not comforting at all. But also, I was reading an article. It was written by Marianne McGee. I'm not even trying that second name, cold buzz. Health Info Security site. Read a lot of her stuff. And the heading is hack on services firm's vendor affects 271,000 patients. And I saw somewhere like 8 of the biggest patient number breaches were vendors in healthcare for 2022. So, to see a number like 271,000, that's several covered entities, more than likely. So here's what had happened was, now, you're going to find some of this interesting, David, because this is a BA based in Oklahoma. They're called AVEM Health Partners. And they say they're a provider of administrative and IT services to healthcare organizations. Now, this, interestingly enough, not included in the numbers we just went through from the OCR side because it hadn't been posted there yet. They posted first to the Maine Attorney General. So we're an Oklahoma vendor, and we know we're having to tell the Attorney General in Maine. So first and foremost, they're not just an Oklahoma firm. They're nationwide. And they provide IT services, David, IT services.
Yeah. Well, everybody thinks they can do it.
I mean, they clearly can. However, here's what happened. They filed that in Maine on December 13th, that all these patients were involved. It's not on the OCR portal yet, but on the notification from Maine, it says patient information stored on servers of one of its vendors subject to unauthorized access in an external hacking incident in May.
Ooh.
Yeah. But they say that this BA, it involved a third-party data storage vendor.
Okay.
So on their website, they have a notice. It's a little brief, couple of paragraphs. I have a link to it. Hopefully it'll still be there by the time you hear this. You can go read it yourself, or you can just take our word for it. But, I'm a big fan of making sure I prove it, because we got to prove it. The heading, I love this. Avon says, notice of 365 data centers data security incident. Yes, it's on our URL, but we're telling you about somebody else. It's not us.
Of course. That's what I would be doing.
Mm-hmm. And they were, quote, notified of a data security incident experienced by 365 data centers, a data storage vendor used by a third-party service provider engaged by Avon.
So it's a business associate of a business associate.
Of a business associate.
Ooh, I feel like I'm in Inception.
Uh-huh. All right, so here's a healthcare organization, a covered entity, hires Avon to do IT work. They hire somebody else to manage data storage, who then hires 365 data net centers to house the data. So 3 down from the covered entities. So if you ask those covered entities, did they have data in the 365 data center?
They're like, what are you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, we don't have any data there. More than likely, they've never asked. Where's our data stored? In the cloud.
I heard a good one today. This company had on their website, do you have cloud servers or do you have below cloud servers? I'm like, what? We don't call them local servers anymore?
Not on-prem.
Now they're
they get
below
rained
cloud.
on. They need an umbrella.
I have not heard that yet until today. Below cloud is now what they call an on-prem or local. It's like, wow.
Below cloud. Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even got people to understand the cloud yet. Now we're going to talk about below cloud.
Yeah, that'll work. So this is 3 layers down. The CE is getting notified at some point. We don't know when. OCR will be notified at some point. They do say in their notice that they're going to start notifying patients at some point. Soon. This notice on their website has no date on it, other than to say that the incident was discovered in May 2022. Avon was notified September 9th. They did their review that concluded on October 6th, so a month later, and that they will soon begin mailing letters to patients. And they do end the statement, though. We regret any concern or inconvenience this incident may cause. Really? Thank you for regretting it. Avon is in the process of examining its vendor relationships and evaluating vendor security measures.
And that should be an ongoing process.
And that's exactly, they're having to do it the hard way. We're saying, go ahead and do it now. Because you don't want to be trying to, and they may have already started. And they probably asked their BA what they were doing. But they didn't ask their BA what they were doing with their BAs, and so on and so forth. And, who do you use so we can keep track of it? And do you vet their security?
And obviously, down the line, they do not understand the reporting aspects.
No, because the plot thickens when we go back to the article. Because that lawyer for 365 data centers seems to have an attitude that they might be being thrown under the bus. 'Cause they're saying that they responded to the reporter, the media group that filed the article, saying that their filing with the Maine Attorney General's office, quote, alleges that Avon was the customer of another unnamed entity that allegedly was a 365 customer. So first of all, Avon's like, we don't know who, or 365 is like, we don't even know who Avon is, and they're throwing us under the bus. So upstream, they don't know either. And then their attorney says that the filing in Maine fails to include the fact that on July 13th, so we got May somewhere, July 13th, it's more than 60 days, that our client 365, the lawyer saying that 365 notified all its effective clients that a, quote, highly reputable independent third-party cybersecurity firm had examined 365 systems and attested, quote, with a very high degree of confidence that the cloud environment's connected devices contain no malware and there is no evidence of unauthorized access to or exfiltration of data from the 365 system.
Okay.
So he literally said, in other words, if Avon data had been in the 365 cloud environment at this time, which he's not even admitting that that is the case, that the cybersecurity expert found no indication that those data had been accessed or removed.
Okay, so we have a breach that never happened.
So Avon's saying there was a breach, and 365 is saying no, it was never accessed. And that a reputable, highly reputable, independent third-party firm examined it and had a very high degree of confidence that nothing bad happened.
It concerns me when somebody has to prove in their verbiage that they hired the right person.
Mm-hmm. Why didn't you tell us who it was?
Yeah, it was highly reputable. Okay, yeah. Let me determine that. Tell me who it was.
Yeah, it reminds me of my mother-in-law years ago saying, well, we need to talk to so-and-so at our new bank. They come highly recommended. By who? Our old bank, who's it's the same bank. So, of course, they're going to recommend highly their people in the new city. Okay. Yeah. But it is a little tricky there. But you're right. It's like Avon says, oh, crap, we got to notify everybody because we can't be sure.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't know, because Avon hasn't responded to the article, what we don't know is if that information about, because I would ask, well, I want to see the report from the highly reputable third-party cybersecurity firm. I want to see that report because I'm the one on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And, we can do whatever we want, but if you can't show me that report, then I can't turn around and say, I have confirmed. So they're taking the stance, and that's not a wrong thing to do. It's not a bad thing to do, just like you just said. To say, look, if I can't prove it, if I can't be reasonably assured that nothing happened, and there's 3 down from there, I mean, we didn't even know our data was there, kind of thing. So now you've got to pay attention. You, as an MSP, what do you do if something like that happens? Call me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to proceed with an abundance of caution.
Yes. Yes, you are. But then there's another attorney they interviewed with the law firm Reed Smith, Brad Rostol. I'm not good, Rostolsky. Anyway, he had they plucked some really good comments from him that ties back into what we've been talking about just previously and puts a bow on this episode, David.
Okay.
it may be prudent to reconsider how regulated entities are framing their contractual protections and exposure with regards to vendors.
You think?
You think? More attention will need to be paid to business associate agreement indemnity provisions, and I suspect there will be or should be a harder push to employ vendor security questionnaires and vendor audits.
I mean, does he not listen to the podcast? We've been pushing
Apparently
for
not,
that for
but
years.
we need to connect with him because we agree.
Mm-hmm.
But then he finishes the last statement is, and again, brings us right back around. I would not be surprised if we start seeing more commercial lawsuits filed by covered entities against vendors that did not institute an adequate security program. I could also see a push to include express terms in large vendor contracts that more easily enable a breach of contract claim for failing to implement certain security protections.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you right now, what I'm going to expect to start seeing is things like you are required. It will not be optional if you are doing our work as a business associate. I'm going to hire you. You will be required to adopt recognized security practices and attest to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the law. I've had people tell me, well, the law says I got 60 days. No, the law says I got 60 days. But what it actually says is without delay, but no more than 60 days.
Yep.
And if you look at the downstream contracts, I can tell you more than likely the BAA that was signed between 365 data centers and whoever that medium in between other third party is probably just says you're going to notify me. Doesn't say within a certain number of days. Doesn't give the requirements. They notify their people. Then that company has to freak out for a while before they tell Avon. And then Avon has to do their analysis before they tell their covered entities. So here we are in May. This stuff happens 3 people down from the covered entity.
Mm.
So this is why 2 things. Covered entities have got to tighten up, as well as BAs who are upstream and getting services from other BAs. But all the BAs who tell us we don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z because we're just a BA, you better start paying attention.
Yep.
Just had one today that came through, said, you know, they're doing great, but I think they're like new in the healthcare world, and I think there's a lot of that. And they've got some really good policies and procedures, but they haven't identified a security officer. They don't have solid reports proving they're doing things. They're just, you know, getting that advice of what you say. Sign a BAA, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exactly why you've got to start looking at the big picture of what's happening. I bet Avon's if you call them up and say, what do you think we should look at? You know, I would love to talk to them to understand what they were doing in the past and what they are what are they planning to do now to deal with this. But you don't want to be where you haven't even started. And my guess is even if they were looking, they weren't making sure their next one down was looking.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people don't.
Well, that's why you get in trouble trying to get the BAs, the BAAs worked out with these big vendors. Everybody signs this, David. Everybody.
Yeah. If I had some money every time I heard that. We've got 10,000 MSP clients, and you're the only one that says this won't fly. I'm sorry, your other 10,000 people are wrong.
Yeah. You just say, you're welcome.
Yeah, I know.
I'll let you know there's a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to send you an invoice for my consulting. And it's expensive. Start charging $10,000 an hour.
But, you know, this alone, we're starting the PriceTech Boot Camp on supply chain risk management for a reason. Because talking about it in the beginning because it goes through everything else you do.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely part of every other thing you do. And for people that think, oh, I can make my policies and procedures in a vacuum, not actually coordinate with, say, my data storage vendor or my IT provider who then has a data storage vendor, or my billing company and how we move data and those. No, that has to be coordinated, which is why we then bring that up throughout the whole process in our boot camps for that particular reason. So if you aren't doing this today, get it on your to-do list for 2023.
Yeah. Thanks, Donna. Like I needed something else to do.
Well, we put it in our predictions. The supply chain is going to continue to be a problem.
Oh, yeah, it is. No doubt. It absolutely is.
And it ain't going away anytime soon. Just like us saying that these attacks aren't going away. Have you seen like a ton of invitations to register for webinars about the next ransomware mover? What are they going to do next? What's ransomware 3.0? I've seen them left and right.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to hear chatter from the IT community about, should we go back to on-prem? Should we pull our things out of the cloud, go back to on-prem, because we're a smaller target? But that's, that swings different directions. So, it might make you a smaller target, but you also probably don't have the resources and time to put into securing your smaller target.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
Well, what you have to do, and this gets back to it, is even if I'm going to worry about it at my site, like let's say I even had been worrying about it, like really, really worrying about it and worrying about the next one down, but not making sure they're worried about it and that they're understanding it. I mean, it's a much bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I can secure a lot of things. I feel confident about my abilities as a small business owner, but I don't know many other small business owners that aren't doing our kind of work that know how to do it themselves.
No, they just follow the installation wizard, the setup wizard. Click, 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 click. I'm done. It's working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's working. Most of the things out of the box aren't secure for a reason, because, you got to lock it down to your desired level of security.
Yeah, and that alone is, I think, that first step of what is your desired level of security, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
It depends on how much it costs. It depends on the level of frustration it causes. It's all kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a conversation last week. Somebody had a business email compromise, and we went through the discussion of MFA. And first question, how much does it cost? I'm like, it's free. And why haven't we been doing it? I'm like, that's a great question. Why haven't you been doing it?
I don't know.
And, it's a newer client, but then I start talking more about it, and they're like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? We've got all these people that they can't be bothered with dealing with MFA. They're going to pitch a fit. I'm like, okay, that's probably why your previous IT person didn't do it then, because you're already pushing back against something that's free.
Mm-hmm. I went through this. A friend of mine owns a salon, and he has, where the business model is the stylist rent the chair, so to speak, and he provides the infrastructure. And he, of course, we're good friends, and so we're like, I love to have you cut my hair, but I really need you to get into this century with how I make appointments and do all of this online and not some big book like you're still doing. And he goes, well, they won't go along with it. They don't like change. And we said, we'll handle it. We always do deals with our friends. And so we came in and gave him, here we're helping implement the thing. He'd been using it, just not for scheduling. We helped them implement it for scheduling, set all this inventory, all this stuff up, taught the team, and then said, this book will be removed from this table and you will never see it again on this day. So good luck. If you want to keep using it, it'll be gone. We're going to give it to you so you can move your stuff in, not so you can keep using it. And sure enough, everybody complained, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I'm afraid of moving the book. Carla went in, got the book, took it. And you know what? They love it now. They love it. Now I'm going to put 2FA on it and they won't love it.
Yep.
But change is hard. Humans don't like it.
Nope.
Humans don't like it at all.
Well, the other thing that drives me a little crazy is there's always this assumption that people can't do it. Like, I hear that with the MFA one a lot. Like, they're not going to understand this. They're not going to know how to do it. They're just, blah, blah. I'm like, come on, give your people a little bit more credit. you hired them. What does it say about you if you hire people that can't do MFA? I mean, I understand that they're not going to like it initially, but they're also not going to like what happens when the place gets breached and you're shut down for a month and they're not getting a paycheck.
Yeah, because they're going to really be upset then.
Yeah. So, it's just, as somebody once told me, life is hard. Pick your hard. It don't matter if you're doing stuff you're going about cybersecurity the right way, or you're not doing it at all and you're paying attention to other things. It doesn't matter. Everything you do in life's hard. Just pick your hard.
Yeah. Or my favorite is a guy whose dad, when he started complaining about his first job, in high school, and his dad goes, they don't pay you to have fun. That's it. When you're going to complain about it, they don't pay you to have fun. If you're not having fun, they don't pay you for that.
Yeah.
So there you have it. I'm not paying you to have fun. I'm paying you to protect this data. Off you go now.
Mm-hmm. I love the people that spend more time fussing about having to do something when it took half the time to do it. Those with kids will understand.
Yeah, they will.
All right. That's our show for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to give us a rating and review. If you don't know how to do that, email Elizabeth. See the beginning of the podcast for her email address. She will point you in the right direction.
I'd love it.
Thanks for helping us spread the word. Remember, the HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.